Okay, I think we are set. All right, hopefully everything is good on my end. Perfect, perfect. I think we're all good. All right, so as you guys can see here, we have a little bit of a timeline issue I want to resolve, which is mainly that I've never actually written out a simple list or put up like a chart or something for, definitely not for any of the Dark Souls games, but for certain not Dark Souls 1. Of course, I feel like this would probably make it a whole lot easier if I did have that on hand just to show other people and stuff for reference, you know, for those that haven't read my book, or even if they have, they just kind of want the simple chart to remember. So let's see what we can do with that. This is looking analytical, somewhat. It's mostly going to be me going through and trying to recall every major, or I guess we can even include minor stuff, and we'll see what we can condense later, event in the games, and try to put them in their chronological order, at least proximate chronological order, right? Because some stuff is, you know, it might be happening around the same-ish time and stuff like that, or it's like it's so close together, like I said, we may be able to condense some stuff into like simple singular events. I started out by putting like one event in like each one that I thought like, oh yeah, this is relatively early. This might be like the very first we could put in each era, right? So as we can see, I've got made sure. Oh, that's the thumbnail. No, but as you can see, we have ourselves a very, very expansive timeline covering, I think, pretty much. Oh my God, that's the other thumbnail. Relevant era, right? You know what? I'm gonna make this easier for me. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Also, if the BGM is like too loud or something, again, I don't know how long we're going to have this one going for. I may switch it out if I don't feel like it's appropriate. Just kind of threw it on. So we'll see. We'll play it by ear, literally. Yeah. So, oh, I hate this. Like, why? Why are you showing this up to me? I don't want you. I don't like you. I don't like you whatsoever. Let's try actually just a little bit more then. Okay, sure. Right? There we go. Okay, there we go. Hopefully no mistakes happening here with how long this is. Okay. Anyway, so this gives us a good sense of what we're working with. Hey, I am good to see you guys in the chart. So, like, chart. Well, we definitely have a chart. All right, so full disclosure, this will be effectively a kind of like an interactive thing. You guys can kind of throw in like events and stuff as we're going through the eras. We're gonna go though in like chronological order. So like Age of Ancients, I'm just gonna leave this as Rock and Fog, baby, because I literally there's no time. There's no point in trying to create a timeline for stuff. It'd be like, you know, there were trees, there were dragons, and there were rocks there. Okay, yeah, there's nothing else to really add here. So I think we can move on. Now, Diaphorezoic era. This is just a fancy way of me saying it is the Life of Disparity time. I feel like I actually sat in with the advanced classes of the beginner class, but I'm happy to be here. Yeah, again, like I said, if you've, for those that have read my book or have not done so, if there are any like events or things that you want to like just kind of throw out there and be like, don't forget this or don't forget this, feel free to. Again, there is a 30-second-ish delay from when you type stuff out and when I get it. So again, the sooner you're like, oh no, like maybe I should mention this or whatever, it's fine. And if you like, you know, I already type in the event by the time I see it, it's fine, guys, don't worry. Oh, nope, we want to make sure that is available. All right, so let's see. So we got, let's change this up. World of Crags, Archtrees, Archdragons. There we go. Okay, next. So new, so then the first flame emerges, right? So actually we should put this souls / disparity. Oh wait, actually no, let's do it like this. Disparity souls proliferate. That's a good way to put it. Proliferate. Lord souls form residue, form or settle near first flame. That's a good one as well. What other events will we put here? Primordial crystal forms. You could probably argue whether this happens before or after the Lord Souls settle down, but it's about the same time, so we'll go with that. Uh-oh, there's our doggo. 1 second, chat. All right, let's see if she stays happy. All right, so primordial crystal forms. Anything else that happens before Archdragon start? Fog. Into how do I word this? Also, we don't want we don't need, yeah. Fog condenses into cosmic. I don't want to say cosmic sea. Let's just say fog condenses to form sky. Just let's keep it simple like that. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Sun and stars manifest in sky. We'll put that in there as well. We'll include moon under sun and stars, so that's fine. Archdragons and archtrees acquire souls. That's fair. New archdragons are born. Let's simplify this even more. Archdragons / archtrees acquire souls. New archdragons / trees. New dragons / trees are born. Let's keep this, very simple. / trees are born. So we can count Seath. Let's put this just for the Seath is Seath, Calamite, Sin, etc. are born. How do I want to put this? Wyverns evolve from archdragons. Let's also include worms in here. Just to include the DS2 stuff. All right, first new concept, Primordial Crystal. I'm mostly good at DS3 lore, so that was not in my lore dictionary. I need to look that up. That's DS1 lore, Martonk. That is for the crystal that Seath has for his boss fight and stuff like that. That is the Primordial Crystal. Let's see. Wyverns / worms evolve from archdragons. Snakes evolve from dragons. Beasts evolve from snakes. We'd include primordial snakes, serpents under this snakes one, right? Let's just put this. Koth, and Frampt are born. Well, there's more than just them, right? So Koth, Frampt, etc. are born. Beasts evolve from snakes. Giants, medials, and pygmies evolve from beasts. There, that I think is very straightforward. We can, yep, okay. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. We go from snakes to beasts to various bipedal races, right? Simple, straightforward evolution. Let's put this. Mushrooms evolve, or fungi evolve from trees. Plants / fungi evolve from trees. There we go. So we'll include both. This stuff is basically concurrent, right? In fact, you know what? Let's put this here. Just so that way it's easier to be like, okay, yeah, like beasts and stuff, you know, you get your herbivores, your carnivores, all that stuff is like evolving the ecosystem once we've talked about like plants and things. Nito / Izalith / Jeremiah split off from medial tribe. Yeah. Okay. Izalith and plus Jeremiah. No, Izalith and Jeremiah. I don't think sire works when Izalith's in the picture, right? Raise. It's 7 daughters in total, right? It's Quailana, Quailag, Gwaelana, Fair Lady, the 1 dead daughter, plus the 2 in the Bed of Chaos. So that's 7 in total. Yeah, okay, raise 7 daughters. I think we could also... That's not really, yeah. Do you even call this the Stone Age, right? It'll work for now. Evolved from snakes. Medials and pygmies evolved from beasts. Nito, Izalith, Jeremiah split off from medial tribe. Izalith and Jeremiah raised 7 daughters. Let's put this here just because like Gwyn is born in Lordran. Just to make this abundantly clear. I mean, this is all happening in Lordran, but let's just say Gwyn is born. Do I want to put in Lordran here instead? Sure, let's just do it. Actually, you know what? It's not necessary. Let's just put this. Gwyn is born for sure. Izalith and daughters study dark. Something we also have to put in earlier here. Almost forgot this. You know, let's just put the, you know, Seath Calamite, you know, all that stuff that's already happening. Actually, let's keep it there, but Seath pioneers or invents sorcery. There we go. That way we don't have to worry about that. Gwyn is born. So Gwyn is born. What will we put next here? Because it has to be before Lord Souls are discovered, right? So, is there anything else before the Lord Souls are discovered that I'm forgetting during this era? The tribe, we have tribal people. Hey, Macaroni, good to see you in the chat. Like I said, guys, if you ever want to throw out, you know, suggestions or anything you think, oh, don't forget this, feel free to. I'm trying to wing this right now, but so anything I'm forgetting during this period, and it doesn't have to be the next thing on the timeline, it could be anything in this timeline you think should be placed in between events. Like, I'm not sure if there's anything. Oh. Is there anything I'm forgetting in terms of what happens between Gwyn is born and Gwyn finding and the others finding their Lord Souls? Second new thing to me is Jeremiah. Could you tell me what I can connect him to? Sorry for the silly questions. Jeremiah is essentially Isla's husband and yeah, basically I guess it's, think of it like the Radigan of Islithian civilization until he gets exiled. Again, he's a Dark Souls 1 character. Hey, Baltoy, good to see you. All right, I gotta look this one up. Why is it translating cow? Is that supposed to be like the evangelist, Baltoy? Like I think of them whenever I hear that noise. Anyway, let's see. So Gwyn is born. Oh, whoopsie! Did not mean to click. So Gwyn is born, and I guess that has to be the last major event, right? Because he doesn't have his children, I don't believe, until after he gets the Lord Soul, based on what the powers they inherit and stuff like that. Which seems to be their natural affinities. Yeah, for now, unless I'm forgetting something, this should be it. Like, there might be more major events I'm forgetting, but... Is it right to say civilization develops in this era, as in cities and armies and such? No. No, Tuba. Civilization doesn't start until the Lord Souls are found, right? This is the idea that before... At the time that the Lord Souls are discovered, the Japanese is clear in describing those who found the Lord Souls, i.e. the four lords, the Pygmy, Nito, Izalith, and Gwyn, as animals. So they're not even people, right? And this plays upon the trope. I talked about this in the Hawkshaw timeline video. This plays upon the idea that, oh, this, like, the fine line between barbarism and animalism, right? Like this idea that you know, like the savage primitives, they're basically animals, right? Now, obviously, if you're an anthropologist, you know, you're like, oh, how could you say that? They, of course, you know, primitive people have developed culture and they have this, you know, complex, the complex, intelligence and all these things. You know, they're still people like us, right? Like that would be like, that rational, scientific, commentary on that, right? But the idea, of course, the idea that Miyazaki's playing upon has always been this idea, like, that barbarians are kind of like, they're not like us. They're more savage, animalistic. Like, you see this with the Grus in Dark Souls 3, right? They're supposed to be a barbarian, like a savage tribe. And they're literally like animal people, essentially, right? And you see the similar thing with, like, say, the Lion Men in Dark Souls 2 and stuff like that. There's always, like, From Software and Miyazaki especially have always liked to play with this trope on the idea that, primitives and barbarians are this, essentially animals. And so this is the idea that it's not until the Lord Souls are found and that these animals become kings and they establish hierarchies as kings and therefore establish kingdoms that quote unquote civilization really develops, right? So, the idea with Quelana and her sisters wearing those robes that are very, let's be honest, they're like primitive, shamanistic, witch doctor type things, right? Like, they're not like, say, the fine robes that Gwyn wears as he fights the dragons and stuff like that, right? Because the point was, these were like the simple tribal wear that the peoples before the Lord Souls had worn before the quote-unquote beginning of the Age of Fire, before the Age of Fire, as Quelana's garments describe, right? Before we had this, we had effectively this kind of tribalistic, simple, you know, communal societies, right? And then once the Lord Souls enter the picture and you have this huge power disparity within the tribes of the races. So you have the Pygmy clan, the Medial clan, and the Giant clan, right? Once there's disparity within the Medial clan, and then of course also the Pygmy clan, that's when you start having hierarchies and kingdoms developing, and therefore civilization. Lloyd is also born here. Ah, perfect. That's a good one to include. See, perfect. We don't know how old Nito, Islith, etc. are, but we'll just put Lloyd is born here for now. Like I said, some of this stuff will get condensed, I think. Right? So I don't want to be like too specific on this, but I think just for the sake of argument, we should try to get as, you know, I think we should try to keep as many little details as we can to see if we can, like, if there's anything like where it's like, oh, we should separate these because like this event has to go in between these two events, so we shouldn't combine those events and like potentially overwrite that one, right? Anyway, for now, we're going to consider this to be the end then, right? So, animals become kings. Let's just put this like that. Nito becomes the Grave Lord. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to even include this here. We'll just start with Nito. We'll go in order of how they appear in the cinematic. So Nito becomes the Grave Lord, right? First of the dead, right? So this is when Nito dies, and then he becomes the dead guy necromancy. I guess you could include that in, yeah, we'll just include that in Grave Lord. Anything else for Nito that we'd want to mention? Not really. Let's just put this. Nito tinkers with skeletal body. There we go. We'll put that. Islith. Oh, actually, you know what we could put here? Medials / Pygmies discover first flame. That's probably good. That's probably a good way to end it, because then it's like Lord Souls then are discovered afterwards. So they discover the first flame. All right. So then they find the Lord Souls, right? And that brings us, I'm gonna move the timeline here a little bit then. Oh. Whoop. So we're now at the dawn of the Age of Fire period. So this is like Age of Fire is officially beginning. And with that, so Islith and daughters invent flame sorcery. That sounds about right. Yep. They find fire. They find Lord Souls. Anything else we need to add for Jeremiah? I don't think so. Yeah, Jeremiah doesn't really do anything here. Islith, again. Because they're yeah, Islith and the daughter study the dark, right? And then they discover the first flame. Then they discover fire. They invent flame sorcery. Nito does his thing, right? Islith begins experimenting to create her own first flame. Let's put this with daughters too, with daughters. All right. I think we can move on to Gwyn then. Because after this, it would probably be Gwyn establishes dominion over clan. There we go. So over the meat, so over his clan. Over his clan. Shares power with vassals of new kingdom. Vamos invents smithing. Blacksmithing will say, hey, Xavier. Rykard's torture chair is kind of cool. You should try it. No. I'm already in the torture chair. I'm standing here trying to figure out which events I need to include and in what order. Okay, this is already torture. I'm tired of being in this chair. I don't need another one. So Vamos invents blacksmithing. Flame weapons are developed. Medials. Let's not say of new kingdom. I think it's with vassals. Medials subjugate / enslave the giants. Right, that seems about right. Mamos develops flame weaponry. Let's just do that like that. So we got our blacksmith god who's creating the smithing, and the first major development after that would of course be fire weaponry. That's obviously the most basic and the most relevant to them. Medials build kiln of the first flame. I guess we can also include the wormhole, the fire / fire link chamber. There we go. I guess we could also argue medials become gods at this point. Medials establish godhood. Medials construct and or let's just say found and or Londo. Actually, you know, let's say this actually. Let's say this. This is probably where it actually happens, right? So it's probably the order is they again, not Anor Londo as we see it today, but probably like now, like, you know, at this point they're establishing at least the settlement of Anor Londo, and obviously it's going to advance and develop over time to become like the neo-Renaissance city that we see it today. But so let's see, events, blacksmithing and stuff. Okay, so medial ascending and becoming racist. They discover racism. They invent racism. Man, Gwyn is pioneering all the good stuff. All right, so we invent blacksmithing, we develop the flame weaponry, we subjugate and we enslave the giants. We build the kiln of the first flame in the firelink chamber wormhole stuff, so it's connected to Anor Londo. We've already by this point we definitely establish godhood, right? The idea that we are you know, we're not just a separate race from you, we are a superior status of entity, right? Let's see. Hey Celeste, good to see you in the chat. Again, like I said, guys, if you ever want to throw out suggestions or things I may be forgetting, feel free to. Just remember that there's a 30-second delay, so I may end up typing it in by the time I see your message, but it's okay. We will. I don't mind. I don't mind if there's some redundancy here. Medials establish their godhood. Sen's fortress. By this point, Sen's fortress is constructed, or yeah, Sen's fortress is constructed. So by this point, we're getting the fortress and we're training. Let's see. Knight, Anor, Londo, Knights train to become train for dragon hunting. Oh, we should also, they found Anor Londo. Gwyn and Queen and his queen raise firstborn Guinevere and Filianor. Yeah, about here. At least they should be born by this point. Again, we don't know if the firstborn participated in any conflicts before the dragon hunts, but I think it's just it's safer. It's safer to have it where by this point, by around this period, they should be being born. So let's see. Vamos develops the flame weaponry. They subjugate and stuff the giants. Anor Londo train for dragon hunts. Vamos develops white iron and holy weaponry. Yeah. And I think Vamos develops lightning weaponry. We can't say when exactly the miracles and stuff get developed, but we can also say Anor Londo develops lightning magic. Yeah, that's fair. Around this point, they have to start to be developing what we know and see, right? Duke's Archives, or let's just put it like this. Grand Archives, or Anor Londo establishes Grand Archives. By this point, they need to start having this stuff recorded in a central location, right? So this is probably when the Grand Archives as we know it gets built. At least Ornstein and Goff come into the picture before the Dragon War. Yeah, but I'm not going to say their births exactly because we don't know. They could have been born during the previous era for all we know. So by the Dragon Hunts, for sure, they do have to be included. So firstborn. Oh, let's make this so you guys can see it. There we go. Actually, no. There we go. Firstborn trains at Sen's fortress. Guinevere. Oh, I said lightning magic. Let's include holy magic up there. So that way it just simplifies it. Okay, Guinevere. So firstborn traits at Sen's fortress. No way, Loki will actually cook a video of Dark Souls timeline. No, Bray, no. I'm just organizing the timeline. No video yet. Guinevere. So firstborn traits at Sen's fortress. Guinevere blesses knights. Let's just say provides blessings to warriors. That'll keep things simple. Gwyn form. This also has to happen at some point. There may be events before that, but Gwyn forms alliance with Nito and Izalith. I'm gonna lower this for a second, just so. Oh, there we go. Why do you think Vamos invented blacksmithing? Because he's the blacksmith deity. Let's see. You think the firstborn was already known as specifically a war god before the dragon hunts? As specifically a war god? I mean, again, with stuff like the god of war or god of alcohol and medicine, stuff like this, these are more like job descriptions than they are like anything greater than that. So for humans, it's like, oh, he's the god of war or whatever. That's more so like kind of like, you know, retroactively applying, you know, kind of like a descriptor to someone after their history. So like, can the firstborn be considered a god of war the moment he begins training to fight in wars? Sure, I guess. But like, again, I think it's like it's an arbitrary distinction. The point is like he's training to become a warrior before the dragon hunts. Yes. Athana's okay. No. The term here is Athantozoic era, Nobre. So zo, again, these come from Greek, right? So this is much like how we have like, oh, the Mesozoic and stuff like that. So the Diaphorezoic just means basically difference or disparity life era. So, oh, why do I keep doing this? And then this basically means immortal life era. So again, this is basically the era of undeath and the era of the life of disparity. Mephilinor is useless. I mean, yeah, basically. She ain't doing it. She ain't doing anything. You know what? Let's be fair. Let's be fair to Filianor. She's also technically in this camp. She's like playing second fiddle to her older sister, but she's technically in this camp. Will you add this document to your website? No. Again, this is a separate thing. Like I said, I'll probably be adding these things or some measure of them to this. So keep that in mind. Yeah, that's my point. That's my point, best guys. Like, it's again, it isn't, again, the gods aren't like, you know, we are talking about like the Olympians, even though they live on a mount, or like the Nefer in Egyptian mythology, or you know, even the Kami in Shinto mythology. Like we're not talking about like a lot of these gods who are like uncreated entities that came out of like the cosmic ether or whatever, right? The idea is oftentimes that they're one of the races, right? And they kind of are applying titles to themselves as gods in the same way that a noble might apply titles to himself to make him sound more special or distinguish himself from his peers. Like that is generally the idea we have here. And again, it's mostly for the sake of their worshipers. It doesn't really serve the gods in any meaningful sense, right? It's not like, oh no, if the firstborn decides he's going to take up knitting, he's going to stop being a war god or something, right? All right. So Gwyn forms alliance with Nito and Isleth. Is there anything else? Firstborn befriends Stormdrake. This obviously has to happen before the war. He has to go out. They're hunting. That's probably a good thing to say. And I don't know if I want to make it a separate event though, that Anor Londo is going out and hunting wyverns for test runs. You know what? We'll just say the Transit Sense Fortress covers that type of stuff. So firstborn befriends Stormdrake. Anything else that we want to add before we get to the... Oh, okay, you know what? Let's just put it right here. We know. Gwyn approaches Pygmy. Oh. I guess you could argue whether or not Ring City is built or whatever. Gwyn approaches furtive Pygmy. Let's just put the furtive Pygmy. I always want to remove the indefinite articles. I don't know if it's like, you know, my, you know, the Japanese part, like kind of, spilling over or whatever, but I'm like, I kind of like to kind of keep things so simple and basic bullet points sometimes. Is there any implication on how the first flame came out of the world? Maybe? I try not to focus too hard on the origin of the first flame. I have a few ideas, but it's very heady and very, very deep into the lore. So it's one of those things where I'm like, it's something that's so small and so in the grander scheme of things, like unimportant, that maybe there is an answer, but I myself can't like tell you solidly what I even can imagine what it is. Does Gwyn even care about his daughter? He loves his daughters. He was going to come and pick her up again. You know, it just so happened things got in the way. Those things being his hard-on against the dark. Anor Londo, Gifts, Pygmies, Ringed City. The furtive pygmy. You know, actually, no. Let's make this simple. Let's see. The furtive pygmy finds the dark soul. The pygmy lord splits dark soul amongst clan. Anything else we want to put before this? Velka begins study of all arts. There we go. That's fair. Velka becomes witch studying all arts. Again, this is probably the most variable event here. You could put this like before or after a bunch of stuff, because you could argue that stuff like this would have happened like just before the hunts. Like, you know, we're doing a test run. We're going to hunt some wyverns. Okay, I'm going to take this wyvern. I'm going to befriend and we're going to train a little bit more with this guy. And then we're going to move on. That could definitely have happened. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do this. I think it is fair to put this as a separate Anor Londo hunts / captures wyverns. Yeah, I think it's fair. There we go. Okay. Gives the pygmy the ring city. You could argue when exactly the ring city was born, if the Gwyn had that shit born ahead of time, or if it was something after they had already approached and kind of worked out a deal. But either way, they get the ring city. Ringed pygmy lord establishes the ringed knights. Don't forget to place when they cross over into the ER universe for Night Ride. That's later, Xavier. Later. That's later in the timeline. We're not there yet. We have to get to the end. Oh my god. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do have some like different like techniques and stuff developing, best guy, but we know some of that is happening during the course of the hunts. Like, for example, the firstborn has the dragon sword spear at the start and what he keeps, but eventually that develops into the dragon slayer spear, like say what Ornstein uses later on. And then of course, like you said, there's also the miracles that are being developed as well, right? So all of this I'm going to consider under what we were talking about with developing lightning miracles, them training and stuff like that, and some of this stuff that they'll establish during the gods. So pygmy lords establish the ring knights. Oh, let's see. Gives pygmies the ring city and Philionor. How could I forget, chat? It's not just the ring city. They get Philionor as a bonus package. Man, what a great deal. Buy now. Oh. Okay, so ring city and Philionor. Pygmy lord establishes the ring knights. Have you seen the Firelink conspiracy videos on the lore? No, I have not, though I have been suggested them with the expectation I will pull my hair out. So I look forward to when I eventually decide I'm going to listen to them when I'm feeling particularly masochistic and not wanting to do a timeline video. Does Gwyn befriend Frampton this period? Ooh, that's a good one, Baltoy. Where do we put... Primordial serpents approach in Orlando. Yeah, by this point. I think it makes the most sense at the very, if not before they start plotting to overthrow the dragons, then at the very least very early on. So about this, Gwyn being father of the year. Listen, it was temporary. He promised he would come back for her, okay? Barring some completely unforeseen circumstances that were completely of his own making, he would have fulfilled that promise. Listen, chat, how was he supposed to know that the ring of fire, which he used in order to seal the dark, would end up weakening when the fire eventually faded? I mean, who could have possibly foreseen that coming? I think they forced his hand. I'm just saying. Right, so Pygmy Lord establishes the Ring Knights. I can't think of anything else Pygmy related before we get to the Darksign. And Orlando shackles the Pygmies with the Darksign. Let's just keep that simple. Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head any major events that we're missing here. Let me drag up my article. 1 second, chat. All right, here we go. One second, chat. Let's get down all the way to Ring City. That's Bloodborne. That's Elden Ring. Ring City, Ring City, Ring City, Ring City, Ring City, Ring City, Ring City. Wait, did I miss it? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay. All right, so let's see. Darksign. Yeah, you know, that's fair. We should probably also mention the Ring Knights and stuff getting sealed. We could also mention them inventing abyssal weaponry and stuff like that. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, okay. Gwyn cursed all of humanity just to have aura, lol. You know what? You're actually very right. It should have worked! Fire is very famous for just existing by itself perpetually. Yeah, if only Gwyn knew of a certain maxim that might have been able to better convey this totally unforeseen event from happening. You know, something like, you know, fire fading and then only the dark remaining. Huh, you know, something like that. There's the Shira. Shira is post-Dragon Hunts. Yeah, Shira's not born until post-Dragon Hunts. We gotta have Seath and Guinevere married first, so... let's see. Firstborn, so let's see. Establishes the Ring Knights. Ringed City, invents abyssal weaponry. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and then Orlando shackles Pygmies with the Darksign. And Orlando seals, shackles, or seals Ringed Knight equipment with fire. So all that's done. Let's go back here. What exactly are we looking at? So let's see. Oh, only temporary. The walls, the mausoleums. Yeah, Guinevere's already received her blessings. Yeah, so it's good that we put the timeline stuff with the warriors earlier. Blah, blah. Different burial sites and all that. Yeah, Silver Knights. Oh, this is something we should probably mention. We should probably mention the role of the primordial serpents here, so. Primordial serpents approach Pygmy Lord. Yep, that sounds good. Speaking of Shira, who was that Mad King that she killed? I only read her weapon description. Basically, just one of the Pygmy lords in the council of in their thrones. One of them basically went mad and embraced the dark and basically became like a super-powered, ultra-immortal abomination type thing in the process. And Shira basically was like, "Oh no, you don't," skewered him. But the guy, well, he didn't die. He was extra super ultra immortal again, so she ends up basically locking herself up with him and spends her entire time basically just trying to keep him suppressed. All right, so let's get back to Pygmies. The fire captures the wyvern seal. So Loki, but what about the miracle Shira uses, which is the electric silver night bow? What about it? Miracles exist. You could study them. Like Havel probably invented his great magic barrier spell way back during the dragon hunts. That doesn't stop later peoples from learning them. Like it was popular from that era. That doesn't mean that Shira actually was born before or during the dragon hunts. She was probably born shortly after. I imagine that Seath and Guinevere had quite the honeymoon. So, which is probably why it's so fresh in her mind that she feels like she almost wants to be part of that era. But that's a separate, but that's, no. She's not born that early, chat. I'm sorry to say. We don't have Seath and Guinevere probably having some secret tryst in the middle of a war. Is the Tomb of the Giants before or after the war? Tomb should be... Oh, you know what? That's actually fair. Where's the alliance with Nito? Tomb of the Giants is established. By this point, the Tomb of the Giants formally has to be created. Yeah, and then let's just put Tomb of the Giants / Gods is established. Just so that we have both. Because it's supposed to be like ancestral burial ground and all that. Nito's obviously now in control there and all that. Ugh. We seal the Ring Knights equipment with fire. And then what? Well, I guess we have to go back to here. Let's see. We got the primordial serpents. At what... Okay, so at what point do... Actually, I think I referenced it here. I say rather far too often, chat. Far too often I'm saying rather instead of rat. Ally? Wait, do I really never mention or link to the Rat King at any point? I feel like that's wrong. I could have swore I remember doing that. It might be an obscure reference I linked to. Oh, what the hell? There we go. Aldia, the Darksign. Ah, here it is. King was already quietly... Okay, yeah, that's too... So there's... You could argue whether or not it's before or after the sealing's already happening, but... Let's put it before, just to... Ring Pygmy Lord forms, makes deal with Rat King. Yeah, okay. Mound makers and all the pygmies, the propaganda war. Yeah, we talked about all this with the... All right, the obelisks and stuff. Yeah, dragon hunts came. Okay, so I think that covers all the stuff we care about for the pygmies. I think we've covered all the major events, unless there is something... No, I think we've covered all the major events involving the pygmies. So is there anything else involving the gods that we should be including before we move on here? So Filianor's been given away. Firstborn and Guinevere are, you know, building up their forces with Gwyn's army. The Silver Knights are, of course, are established as Gwyn's bodyguards and stuff like, or I should say the royal bodyguards. We may or may not have giants at this point already becoming sentinels and stuff. It's a little vague, but it's possible. I don't think we need to like clarify like Anor Londo becoming the culture we know. Oh, you know what I should mention though? Bronze. That's something important we should establish. Because I mentioned iron, right? So I'm already mentioning this Iron Age. Rat King, such a deep plot point. Thank you, DS2. Yes, thank you. So we have them going through their Stone Age, right? During the, obviously before finding the Lord Souls, you know, very basic tools for that they would probably have. Then of course they're building big stone stuff in Kiln and stuff. That doesn't stay the case though. Anor Londo. Let's change it to here, so that way it's simple for us. Anor Londo subjugates, flesh enslaves the giants. Anor Londo builds Kiln of the First Flame. Anor Londo establishes godhood. Anor Londo invents bronze/brass. So they definitely, at this point, they have to adopt. Like, you could maybe argue they may have already found and stuff copper earlier. Maybe they were using copper tools and things earlier. But at this point, they have to be developing and inventing bronze and brass. In fact, you know what? Let's in fact say Vamos. And pretty much anything involving metalworking and stuff has to be credited to the blacksmith deity, so. They also developed Erd Steel. Yes, even Erd Steel. It's all under here. Okay, so. So, like, Gwyn and his family are not, like, literal gods. They're just superhuman. Correct. So, again, this is why I use the term medials to refer to the race of the quote-unquote gods of Anor Londo and other places. Because, well, one, because not all the gods are necessarily the same race. Obviously, some of them are, like, say, Seath is a dragon. In Dark Souls 2, we have humans who get subsequently deified and stuff like that. So, that's one element to it. But the main thrust would basically be, like, Yeah, you have essentially a bunch of, you have giants, and then somewhere in the giant family tree, they split off into like the what I call or term as the medials, and of course the pygmy slash humans, right? So you have kind of this idea where these bipedal races evolve and they kind of break off from the family tree at some point or somewhere along the line. The point being then is that these separate races kind of all exist, kind of coexist independently. You know, they're not top dogs. They're obviously dealing with dragons and stuff, as we see with certain weapons like the butcher knife and scythes and things like that. There's this like primal fear of being hunted as prey and stuff like that, right? So they're essentially animals who are the prey rather than the predator in this world where dragons are dominating at the top. And the point being is that they only start establishing and developing this concept of godhood after they acquire the Lord Souls and have this power in order to place themselves above others, especially other races, such as the giants and the pygmies. Yeah, essentially, Xavier. Yeah, it's clever how they do the Erdsteel stuff, because you have this kanji for yellow, which is of course also included in, like, you know, the idea of gold and stuff like that, as like, you know, yellow metals and all that thing. So it becomes, it's a very, you know, kind of clever way of kind of, you know, making it sound not boring. Kind of like how glintstone is technically augite, right? But it literally means bright stone, radiant stone, stuff like that. So they just translate it as glintstone. Unlike, say, in Demon Souls, where they translate it as Auget, right? Because, again, in Demon Souls, they weren't trying to think about that type of stuff. So, similar thing with Dark Souls. They call white iron, I think it's Formalday, which is like Malachite or something like that. They use white iron as being like, or white iron as like a separate thing, when it's just the same. It's literally the same term. It's just, that's just how the kanji's written. All right. Now, where was I? Yeah, I still can't think of it, chat. I feel like Anor Londo going after wyverns has to happen by this point. I don't think we need to clarify them, like, lightnifying. Is there even a word for that? Electrifying, I guess. Electrifying our wyverns that they see, our big blue wyverns, right? So I think we just leave it at that here, right? All right. 4 lords challenge the Archdragons. What are major events we have here? Havel faces Seath and becomes rock-like. That's a major event to include there. Anor Londo develops Dragon Slayer Spear from Sword Spear. Ornstein distinguishes himself. Yes, dog? What is it? What is it? What is it, Sonny? She's just sitting there on the bed, staring at me like she's the queen of here. What am I going to do with you, dog? Anyway, Ornstein distinguishes himself as Firstborn's first knight. There we go. Yes? What's... Over here, doggo. Sunny, over here. Oh my god, she just didn't want to... 1 second, chat. She does not want to cooperate with me. All right, next. We'll just keep moving on. If she wants to be... She wants to be prissy. That's her business, I guess. To Gwyn as first. Let's see. Hawkeye. Let's just put it. Goth distinguishes him. Yes? What is it, Sonny? What are you? What is the matter? To Gwyn as great archer. You yeah, as great archer. Goth leads Dragon Slayer unit. Yeah, okay. That tracks. Let's see. All right, they create tempests. Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's say fire flame tempests. Let's see. Might be fancy about it. Firestorms. Nito spreads death. Let's put up here just for Gwyn and Knights hurl lightning spears. Yeah, that's fair. Firstborn and Knights fight at Vanguard. Like I said, some of this stuff we can kind of like simplify or condense. It doesn't necessarily need to be explicated, but just for the sake of keeping this kind of in our heads. Why are you going to bark like this, doggo? What is wrong? You are chilling on a comfy ass bed. She's just not the cooperative type, chat. All right, so oh my god. 1 second, chat. All right, I shoot her away. I was just like, okay, if you're gonna be like that, no, you're not allowed in here. All right, let's see. What do we do here? Oh wait, sounds like BGM just finished too. So perfect. Let's get something else up for you guys. Okay, let's see. What can we find? I'm feeling. You know what? I love Gentleman's Fantasy too much, so let's have this. Let's have this be our background one. There we go. Ventric Mog's Gwyn Loki. I don't know about that one, no brain. I don't know about that one. All right. So let's see. Nito spreads aura of death, I guess. Ringed Knights. I mean, ringed Knights just kind of, they just exist. They do that. They just do whatever they're doing. I guess. We don't really have anything too specific on what they're contributing to the fight. I mean, these are a lot of events. Is there anything like I really am forgetting here for the Dragon Hunt portion, or even before that? Because we have Ornstein, Goth, or Go, however you want to pronounce it. We have Havel. We have Gwyn, of course. We have the Firstborn. Guinevere's already done all her part. She's like there and she's just like fanning herself in the background, being like, okay, boys, keep on fighting. Plus some of my girlies who are using their lightning bow miracle. Stay hydrated, chat. I'm trying to have my water, but I can't think of anything really to add here, so I think we might wrap things up. Seath betrays Archdragons. And the Age of Fire begins as they're finally defeated, right? So yeah, Archdragon's defeated. That'll be when we decide. That is when the Age of Fire. It's no longer just the dawn of the Age of Fire. We're just kind of fully in the Age of Fire's stride. Leto exists. Yeah, but was he doing anything at this period? I mean, he exists. I don't know if he exists in the form as we know him as. Like, I don't know if he adopted the hammer yet. Because he learned that from befriending giants and stuff, right? I guess Leto could predate Havel in terms of doing that. I guess that is possible. Like, him and Havel were friends, but it wasn't like Havel necessarily adopted the whole rock thing before him. I don't know. That's kind of it's vague enough. It kind of can go either way, really. Like, I can't think of anything that would really preclude Leto from starting his shtick before the Dragon Hunts. I guess the question would be, is Goth the first one to really start impressing Gwyn, where he would allow some of the knights to become? Actually, that might be the way to develop it. According to Hawkshaw, Seath told Gwyn about Dragon's weakness. Well, there's a lot of things Hawkshaw says. Not all of them accurate. What about Havel? Havel's already mentioned. Yeah, nobody points it out. Yeah, that whole idea, this is idea where, like, when you trace it back, where do people get this idea that that Seath shared some big secret with Gwyn? It just comes down to the fact that the localization used the term confidant instead of ally, right? As always, the localization had to get fancy, so they're like, oh, we can't just call him something as plain as ally. We have to use a fancy word like confidant. The problem is when you look into the word confidant, there's this connotation of someone who shares a secret with another person. So everyone thinks that Seath must have shared with Gwyn a secret. And obviously, if Seath shared a secret and Gwyn were sharing secrets, the obvious one would be something like the weakness of the dragons, because Seath ends up betraying the dragons for Gwyn and stuff like that, right? That's basically the whole argument. So, like, you throw that. You could throw that in the garbage with anything else that's based on localization stuff. Like, it's worthless. It's not point discussing what does the JP say, and then we can decide, okay, is it something that matches what the localization says or in a different direction? But anyway, point is here. So Seath betrays and kills Archdragons. We see him on top of the pile. I don't think we need to mention the dragons getting beheaded, because that's probably happening all throughout this process, right? It's not like, oh, there was like, you know, all the dragons are dead. Oh, and now we'll just behead them. I think it's at this process. Let's see though. Nito receives the dead. Islith receives the dead headless dragons so they can become the dragon butts. Anor Londo and Ring City. Well, let's see. Anor Londo and Ring Knights receive dragon heads. All right. Let's put this in Age of Fire. Just for the sake of, if we're going to say dragons defeated, right? Again, this is kind of like an arbitrary distinction because Dawn of the Age of Fire is technically part of the Age of Fire. But it's fine. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that would go here. Like, what else would we be missing for the Dragon Hunt era and stuff? Not really. Nothing involving the rats or the Rat King or anything like that. The stuff involving Gwyn's Knights we've covered pretty much. We don't have to worry about Kiaran or Artorias till after this. We don't have to account for, like I said, Leto's not really important to account for here. There's nothing really particular to mention with Velka. Seath, again, we have covered his involvement in the war and then his betrayal at the end. We also have... yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, you know what? Earlier in this area, we should probably mention this for my sake. Where is we have Grand Archive? Where is it? Where is it? Actually, where's the kiln? Yeah. And Orlando collects Primordial Crystal. This is where, again, like I said, this is where I believe the Primordial Crystal ends up before it enters Seath's possession. So let's see. All right. So Orlando collects the Primordial Crystal, Godhood stuff, all that. Seath betrays and kills the Archdragons. The Archdragons are defeated. So the Age of Fire we have everyone collecting what they need. Seath marries Guinevere and becomes Duke. Seath receives access to Grand Archives and Primordial Crystal. Is the explanation behind the Arabic words in Nameless King area? Just the idea of creating a separate cultural space for what the Firstborn creates related to dragons. That's it. You know, most of Dark Souls takes place in a medieval Christendom, you know, medieval European Christendom type setting. So you have churches, you know, Christian churches and stuff like that. They want to separate that from the Firstborn, who has a more pagan / heretical, you know, basically, you know, let's say unorthodox version of what the mainstream religions practice. So he gets you know, he gets something that's more like Arabic Muslim mosques and stuff like that. That's essentially, you know, the idea. Like that's basically what the Archdragon Temple is. It's one big mosque, right? And they just they just use that style to represent dragon religion there. That's it. Nothing complicated. Okay, so Seath receives access to Grand Archives and Primordial Crystal. Gwyn gifts share let's see, Lord Soul Shard to Seath. Gwyn, actually no, let's leave it as is. Obviously, Gwyn's the one who makes the decision here, but I think it's better to just frame it like this. Izalith experiments with headless dragons to create... oh god, I forget what their official name is. One second, chat, one second. I forgot what they are officially called. I'm opening my Archive of the Fire now. Let's see. Is it here? I know it's in here somewhere. No, that's other Izalith enemies. Those are not my dragon butts. There we go. Stealing demons. No, it's not demons. That's whatever localization came up with. No, the official name is different for the JP. I remember like at least one of the English ones on the wikis or something was something like Bounding Demon or something like that, but where is it? Where are my butts? Where are my dragon butts? I need my dragon butts. I need my dragon booty. I want to accidentally glaze over and miss it. Ah, no, it's Naughty Soko Night. I'm stupid. Sorry, chat, I'm retarded. Of course it's Naughty Soko Night. Fucking hell. How could I forget this? How many times have I talked about Naughty Soko Night? Like, to create failed to be. I feel so... Like, how the hell could I forget that? This is the problem when you have Naughty Sokonai in all three games. Like, it all just kind of, like, blends together and fades in the background for me. Like, oh, God, I'm so stupid. All right, so, the experiments of the Headless Dragons to create the failed to be. Let's see. Nito kind of just chilling. Like what? Like how do we even frame this? Honestly, I think we just skip it. There's nothing else to say. Nito receives the dead. He buries the dead. He does his thing with the dead. Like that's it. I guess we'll put that. Nito buries dead and continues spreading death. Oh wow. All right. What else do we now put here? Because we should be focusing on more of Anor Londo stuff, I think, right? Let's put this. Seath and Guinevere raise Shira. Seath collects Archdragon, Corpse, and Midir. Ugh. There we go. Actually, no, I don't want to imply that Midir is like their actual child or something. Alongside Midir. There we go. Poor Medea. My dear Medea. Whatever will we do with Medea? Painted World? Painted World is in this era for sure, but I don't want... let's just put it here. Ariamis creates Painting World for Anor Londo Gallery. All right, that'll be for later down the line. So Seath and Guinevere raise... oh, wait, why are we... we need to get lower. There we go. Actually... can we add one or two more events here just so Age of Fire isn't on this? Oh. Okay, so before that, I guess we could also include this. Artorias distinguishes himself to Gwyn as Wolf Knight. There we go, as Sif's companion. He's probably the last one to join. Kiaran distinguishes herself to Gwyn as Lord's Blade. Lord's Blades are established to regulate humans. Humans are allowed to spread across the world. Manus departs Ring City to found Ulasil under Anor Londo supervision. I'm being a little bit overly detailed here, but yeah, we don't need this. Found Ulasil by Anor Londo. And Orlando allows pygmies to leave Ringed City. Yep, that's to found Ulasil. Manus invents dark sorcery. Loki, where's Anne Orlando Queen? She's still alive right now. So she's up there. She's up there in the old era before Guinevere and Firstborn are born. So she's all the way up there for Gwyn. So we don't need to be concerned with her right now. Manus departs Ring City to found Ulasil. We should probably, yeah, we should move. There we go. Let's just put this between Artorias and Kjaran because we all know they're never going to be together. They were never meant to be together. All right. I feel like more stuff has to go between the pygmies being allowed to leave and Nito's braiding up, but for now we'll leave it here. Manus departs. Manus invents dark sorcery, develops invents and spreads dark sorcery. Alvina is born at Ulasil. Ah, yes, the darkest of dark abyssal creatures, truly fiends, vile fiends, the cat, the feline. Let's see, Manus die. Yeah, Manus dies and is buried. Let's see. Anor Londo gifts Ulasilian royalty. Mushroom men. Ulasil. Well, let's just say this. Ulasil royal family. Ulasil royal family. Well, let's just keep it. So, royal family. Ulasil let's keep this simple. And Ulasil and mushroom men invent white trees. Ulasil adopts light sorcery over dark sorcery. Humans are allowed to spread across the world. Humans establish countries. Baldur, Zeno, etc. No, wait. Was it Zeno or Xena? I think it's Xena, right? There we go. Do you have a lore website too? Neat. Yeah. Again, check the link in the description. That will take you to my website. I have all my publicly available analyses there, as well as the buy page for those who are interested in purchasing my books. Just read the description. Yeah, good. All right, so let's see. Humans are allowed to spread across the world. They establish Baldur and Xena. So old historic kingdoms like that. So I made one heck of a website on the second game. I forgot to go back to it. I can't speak to what anyone else has done, unfortunately. So I can't really tell you who that would be. Xena? Okay. I'll be honest, this translation thing, I was so confused for a second, no break, because it translated as Xena as what was. And I'm just like, what? Nani? But no, that is Xena. Okay. You know what? This translation thing might cause as much harm as good. I'm sorry to think. All right, so humans established countries. Well, in fact, you know what? Humans found Baldur, Xena, etc. Right? So you had an idea of various countries. Lord's blades are established to regulate humans. Rykard distinguishes herself to Gwyn as Lord's blades. Humans begin worshipping medials as gods. Yeah, then the dark is slowly getting massaged out of the culture, right? So this is an overtime thing to regulate humans. You know what? I am. No, we got it. We're gonna put this earlier. I'm gonna put this here. Because again, it's about the same time of events, but it's around, around the time, Shira's getting born and stuff like that. The pygmies, Manus is allowed to leave and stuff like that. Let's in fact do this. Manus allowed to leave. Permitted to leave Ring City to found Ulasil. Hey, look, using a combo for etc. is actually wrong. Never knew about that till my mama told me so. Neither did I know that, Nobre. But you know what? I don't care. It looks stupid without the comma. Yeah, we'll do that. Humans permitted. Let's just say humans, actually, instead of pygmies, just to make it. Medials, is that the term for Gwyn? Yes, as I've said earlier in the stream, the medial is the term that I have coined to distinguish the race of many of the Anor Londo and other gods from say the giants or the pygmies / humans and stuff like that. Again, I go over it more, of course, in my book and stuff, but you could check my article on my website defining gods for part of my explanation there. I don't know why, but I always saw the Age of Fire under Gwyn's rule as similar to Game of Thrones. I mean, there's no denying that Miyazaki has read Song of Ice and Fire before the event of Dark Souls and stuff, right? Because I can't remember if it's in Dark Souls or in Demon Souls, but he does in fact have the internal names for certain NPCs referencing Game of Thrones characters. All right, so more humans are permitted to spread across the world. Humans followed Baldur's Zone. Humans begin worshipping medials as gods. Lord's blades are established to regulate humans. Kiaran distinguishes herself to Gwyn as a Lord's blade. Artorias distinguishes himself to Gwyn as Sif's companion. Because we don't really have any specific feats that Artorias has up before, obviously, hunting the Dark Wraiths and stuff. But that's far too late. He's already part of Gwyn's 4 Knights before then. So it seems to be just the fact that Artorias just proved that he was super mega ultra strong after learning and with learning from and alongside Sif and stuff like that. So also makes sense because they can befriend Alvina and stuff in the forest. So Alvina's born and stuff. Humans gradually... Actually, no. Humans visit Anor Londo. Humans, gods establish priesthoods. Human priesthoods. Nito collects... No, actually, no. The catacombs are established. Yeah, that's about it. Humans visit Anor Londo. Seath experiments on a few humans. Seath collects let's put that down here. Let's put it here. Seath collects 5-legged bivalves / lake beasts for experiments. Makes silver crown with bival pearl for his darling princess. There we go. All right. Oh, we can't wait. Oh, darling little princess. There we go. We have to make sure that it doesn't get confused with Guinevere here. His daddy's little princess. Does Lori start creating demons by this point? Around this period, we should also be having Islith doing stuff with chaos and demons for sure. I think I'm gonna put that last though before we get to the Priscilla stuff, just because we can't be 100% sure when exactly Islith finally tells Jeremiah, "Hey, I need you to knock me up one last time before I do this." Actually, important thing we should include here. Jeremiah and Islith conceive son. Islith performs ritual and with daughters, performs ritual with daughters and creates flame of chaos. Okay. Let's see. Let's keep going though. And anything else I forgot? A few visiting humans. Let's see, he's just dabbling, okay? You know, he was really stressed at the time. You know, it was just, just a little touch. He's like, no one's gonna notice if a few humans who happen to be traveling all the way over to faraway Lordred happen to go missing sometime during the trip. You know, if they don't return after that, maybe they got attacked by a bear or something. No one's gonna know, okay? He really thought he had it this time, okay? I actually think we should actually put this later, because he does place some of this. Oh wait, yeah, we should put this later. And Orlando expels clansmen to become mimic chests, because he stores some of these in the mimic. Oh no, to become the greedy. From Pantheon to become... Let's just say to become security chests. Yeah, that makes sense. Greedy clansman. Attempt to kill. Kill Gwyn's queen. All right. Yep, let's leave it at that. Islith performs ritual with daughters and creates flame of chaos. Flame of chaos goes out of control and engulfs Islith and 2 daughters. And Alonso Queen dies, sad. Flame of Chaos ravages Izalith. Oh, wait, that's actually, there's a few things we have to establish about Izalith, too. Humans. Join witches of Izalith and establish Izalith. City of Izalith, let's say. Yep, okay, yeah. Because now humans are free. They're able to go there. Izalith and her Izalith's family doesn't really care about the whole fear of the dark type of thing, so they're able to live much more closer with humans than, say, the Medials in Anor Londo are, because they had previously been, you know, very much astute in studying the dark and stuff, as Dark Souls 3 makes clear, before they became obsessed with fire, so it's all good. Dark is cool with them. Ravages Izalith. Ceaseless discharge, born as first demon. Izalith, bed of chaos. Izalith. Oh, sorry. Actually, no, we'll say it like this. Izalith and daughters, bed of chaos. Rest, control, or suppress flame of chaos. Yeah, that's good. Izalith rebuilds as capital of chaos. Bed of chaos births first demons to become fire sages. Izalith and daughters invent pyromancy. Quelana develops non-chaos pyromancy. Daughters of chaos gift ceaseless discharge ring to ease sore. Ceaseless discharge ring produces centipede demon ceaseless discharge drops ring. Oh, sorry. God, there's a lot of events here, Jeff. There's a lot more, because just for you guys to get like a sense of the scale here, I put Dawn of the Age of Fire as bigger than Age of Fire in this initial thing, because I wasn't sure there would be enough events during the Age of Fire in comparison. Like, I figured so much stuff happens during the Dawn era that the actual main Age of Fire wouldn't be that big, but we're getting there already. Like, it's a lot more than I thought. Now, granted, like I said, some of this stuff might be condensed or omitted just because it's like too hyper-specific, but I think for the sake of what we're doing here, it's good to get down to these details. So let's see. Quelana develops non-chaos pyromancy. Daughters of Chaos give ceaseless discharge rings to ease sore. He drops it and stuff. We know that. We have the centipede demon. Bed of Chaos births more demons. In fact, let's put that. We're still on DS1. Oh, this is a DS1 only stream. We're not getting to DS2 or 3 today. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. So Velka Love Triangle. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. Don't worry. We'll get to the Velka Love Triangle soon. We're getting there. We're getting there. Actually, wait. I just realized I made a mistake here. Because Priscilla has to be in prison before the greedy stuff happens in my account of events. So Islith and daughters invent pyromancy. Quailon develops non-chaos pyromancy. Bed of Chaos births more demons. Daughter of Chaos gifts ceaselessly charged rings and stuff. So we get stuff like Centipede Demon and everything. Drops it. Ariamis creates Painting World for Orlando Gallery and stuff like that. So what are we going to put here after the Bed of Chaos birthing these demons? Is there anything else in Islith's section that I should be mentioning here? Oh, of course. Quailag and Fair Lady become demons. Let's not say transform, become demons. There we go. All right, so somewhere by this point that stuff should be happening. Okay. Islith invents chaos smithing, chaos weaponry. Because they have chaos weapons and weaponry and stuff like that, right? So they keep to the old, you know, that just makes sense. It's suppressed. We have the stuff with the arch trees and thing. Islith established. We don't really need to mention any of the wildlife and stuff that is there. So demon ruins and stuff like that we have. We have the dragon butts, but they're not important anymore. We've already established their main thing. I think we can include the whole throne room thing for the Bed of Chaos as part of rebuilding as the capital of chaos. So I think that's fair. So yeah, I think we've covered all the stuff relevant to Nito, which is mainly just the catacombs. Nito and stuff also falls under the creating priesthood, so we don't need to mention the pinwheel specifically. Humans becoming priests also, I think we can have that fall under with the Ulasil stuff. I don't think we need to specify for them specifically, because it's mostly Ulasilians who are becoming the gods' priests. Well, obviously the close relationship and the proximity, and then so of course they're the ones who are disproportionately becoming priests. But we have other visitors, right? Oh, we should mention. Humans visit an Orlando. Sends fortress converted to checkpoint. Yeah, that makes sense. We should mention that just to point out, like, you know, at this point, Sen's Fortress is now gone from just being a training facility in preparation for the dragon hunts to now it's basically border patrol. Its entire job is making sure we keep the humans out and the menials in. Ay. Let's see now. Births more demons, invents the chaos weaponry, experiments on the few visiting humans. Yeah, after the security chests. Yeah, I think we need to get into the Velka love triangle now. yep, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point, Nobre. Vamo. Let's just say Royal Smithy, so we're Royal Smithy establishes crossbow bolt pact with humans. There we go. There we go. Man, to think no wonder Kiaran hates humans so much. They separate her from her Artorias. Oh, God. All right. It's time, chat. It's time. Seath cheats on Guinevere with Velka. Velka gives birth to Priscilla. Causes scandal. Priscilla is locked up in Undead Asylum. Obviously, it's not called that at the time, but we're keeping this simple. Priscilla. Oh, well, let's just say Priscilla is imprisoned at Undead Asylum. Child Priscilla. There we go. Yeah, okay. Child Priscilla is imprisoned at Undead Asylum. And/or, gods. Multiple failed assassinations of Priscilla. Priscilla is guided to painting as prison. Creates painting world for Enor Londo prison. Under Velka. Yeah, let's see. Priscilla is guided, Velka guides Priscilla to painting. Inside painting. Sex and procreation, Diaz, doesn't make sense. I call it arithmetic genetics. That's the way that I frame it. So, what happens when you got a dragon with a moonlight affinity and a medial with a dark affinity? That gives you a moon, or let's call it a new moon, a half dragon with a new moon affinity. All right, what happens when you take a half dragon with a new moon affinity and a medial with a super strong sunlight affinity? You get a medial, a medial snake hybrid with a dark moonlight affinity, right? So like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can understand it if I think about it in terms of like competing magical power affinities, and you're like combining them and putting them and seeing like how does one like influence the other and who wins out and stuff like that. Same thing with the a lot of the features or whatever, right? So a lot of that's how you can make sense of it. But yeah, outside of that, like it, ultimately it's gonna be what the developers decide. Gotta decide whatever Miyazaki thinks makes sense to put together, because then you get like Priscilla with the Yorshka and the painter. They have wildly different traits manifesting between them. Velka guides Priscilla inside painting, or let's say inside of Ariamis as new prison. Oh. Velka and priests manage prison. Ariamis prison. How does a dragon impregnate a god in a human image? Listen. I'm sure if you ask your resident furries, I'm sure there's someone living near you who's into that. They'll be able to explain to you how any of that would work. It is not my place to give you the birds and the bees of the archdragons. There we go. Circumstanceless. This is what, again, this is where, again, I covered it in Abyssal Archive, but this is perhaps the most speculative part of, I would argue, probably Abyssal Archive here, because it's really kind of based on, we have, okay, she's dying around this point. She would be dying around this point. We have this coup that's also occurring around this point, and the two events kind of just converge naturally into this scenario. But again, we know that it's definitely something sudden and unexpected and stuff based on Gwyn's reaction that is reinforced in Dark Souls 2. So sex in Dark Souls for real is, if it has a hole, it has a goal. It's funny too, because like in Dark Souls 1, like, you know, like Miyazaki's like so like aghast when people are like, oh my god, were Quaylana and Salomon an item? And he's like, oh my, it's like, dear god, no, we don't even know if they can have children yet. Come Dark Souls 3, he's like, oh yeah, the gods, they had tons of children with humans. Like that one took 2 seconds. Like, Miyazaki, you already gave us a dragon and a medial having babies. How much more difficult could it be for a medial and a human to have a baby? Anyway, so let's see. Velka and Priest manage Ariama's prison. Oh, you know, we need Smo in here. Yeah, we need Smo. You know what? Smo could honestly appear at any point, though. That's the thing. Yeah, we should just include Smo as just smooth, somewhere down here, right? It's sometime after the Artorias stuff, so we'll just put it here at the end, just Smo fails to earn. Smo is rejected from the 4 knights. So this is all explained today. Yeah. Again, this Abyssal Archive covers all my thoughts, my final thoughts regarding Dark Souls 1, right? And so barring a new edition of AA have coming with some edits, like for example, I made some minor edits to my Smo stuff, mostly because I didn't want to put forward a piece that could imply something that I myself didn't stand by regarding Smo and some of the stuff with translation. Like I basically was like, oh, you know, I was kind of just including this just for the sake of you know, completeness and stuff like that. But there was a better point I want to highlight instead, so I kind of like edited the text a little way, and that'll be showing up in the next edition. But like again, nothing major, like nothing like crazy, like nothing of like super big note ever changed or anything like that with the text. So basically, everything that I'm putting here is the same stuff that is written in the book, obviously minus the Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 2 stuff. Will you post this timeline on Discord? Maybe I will post a PDF with it. Again, we are still a long way off. We're a long way off from that point, chat. I'm sorry to say. We're not even in the undead showing up part of the story. Oh god, what is the name of it, chat? What is the name of that miracle? It's in DS2. I'll put it here. No. No. Oh, wait, is this? Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. Blinding Bolt. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So, Blinding Bolt. Gwyn invents blinding bolt. Gwyn prohibits blinding bolt. Let's get it over with. Gwyn. Let's see. Gwyn, there's no nice way of putting this, chat. The right for Priscilla is just there's no say so way of putting this one. Yeah, I don't know. Let's just say, let's just put it like that. Anything else for the Ariamis prison section? I don't think that's needed to be mentioned. Because I don't think we need to mention if there are any. If there are other prisoners, it's probably important to mention Corvians and stuff here. But I don't think, yeah, I don't think we need to mention stuff like the Corvians at this point. From Pantheon to become security chests. Let's just put this as greedy gods. Attempt coup. Kill Gwyn's queen. Welcome, priest, manage Ariamis prison. I think that's... Oh, wait. No. Painting guardians are established. So out of the humans and stuff, we have painting guardians and things. So there probably were humans that are also being prisoned here, actually. So let's actually put this. Humans, certain prisoners become Corvians. Painting, humans become painting guardians. Is Sony going to release a 60 FPS patch for BB? I don't know. Are they? Has there been any news about that? Because I would love for them to do anything with BB. Like, what do we get? We have an animation happening, and God knows how that's going to turn out. What a bad ruler discriminating against my favorite daughter. Oh, he discriminated all right. Priscilla Venerators become painting guardians. Guinevere rewards painting guardians for keeping Priscilla in. I guess we should say rewards guardians for keeping Priscilla isolated. There we go. Instead of saying cheat, let's say has affair. Seath and Velka enter, have an affair. An affair. Priscilla gives birth to Gwendolyn. Gwyn raises Gwendolyn as a daughter. All right. Astora is attacked by the Evil Eye. Oh, let's see. Saved by and saved by one most noble. Stora becomes country of pious knights. Katarina is founded. Yeah, by this point, Katarina has to be founded, right? It may not be one of the older kingdoms for what we know, but it's definitely around this period. It is founded across mountains from Lordran. Seath experiments on a few visiting humans. And hides evidence. I don't know, Chad. I feel like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Are there any more events that we would want to insert into here before the fire begins to fade and things go to hell for Anor Londo? I mean, we have Gwendolyn being raised as a daughter. I don't know if we need to really mention how he studies sorcery and stuff specifically. Just discovered your Discord channel. What's the difference between the PDF you upload there and your website articles? Any of the PDF stuff I put up is essentially my work in progress thing. So if there's a PDF for something and it's not on my website, that basically tells you that it is a draft which I'm sharing. You're free to read it. You're free to do what you will or whatever, but you have to understand that it is in fact all my work in progress stuff. So it may be changed from the final product that ends up on the website, right? Obviously, I also take it where if you guys notice any typos or think that there is some data that I missed, I have separate little channels there for you to, under the report to Loki section, where you can, send me that stuff and I will automatically get a notification for anything you put in there. So please don't try to just spam the chat. Try to keep it all in one message if you can. So that way I don't get annoyed having to hear the notification constantly. But point is that I will then look at that stuff, review it, and do it with it what I will. I don't know, chat. I think that might be everything. Like, what else could there be that we haven't talked about for this era in the Age of Fire? I'll be honest, it's a lot more writing it out than I thought it would be. Like, a lot more. Like I said, there's the SPO stuff. We have the whole sea thing. We have countries like Astora. It's actually, you know what? Let's put it like this. Also, nice. Dark culture gradually pushed to the fringes of society. Dark culture degenerates. So if I stick to the website, I don't lose anything of your work, right? Yeah, no. Like I said, basically what I put on the Discord is like an early, incomplete look for something. And like I said, anything on there is subject to major change. So I can't guarantee that anything that you'll read on the Discord might make it, like there could be an argument I make in the thing, and then like I go through and I'm like, actually that makes no sense. I radically changed the draft, and then what ends up happening later, right? Like essentially I'm just letting you guys regularly get a look at my work, one, so that way you guys can kind of, keep up to date on my progress on anything, like what I've been working on in the past few months or something like that. And also, so that way I don't potentially lose it, because it'll obviously be on the Discord. You guys may have downloaded your own copy. So God forbid something happens like what happened years back with my hard drive failing me. Now I have an SSD, but you know, God forbid something happens and I lose my data or whatever. At the very least, I will have a up-to-date draft on something, because I don't want to lose anything like I lost Blood's Beginning. That will always be like, that's a part of my soul that's been lost. One Most Noble, basically kind of the like Astraea Ostrava distilled character, right? The character that's supposed to be that's like kind of gets that manages to win the day thanks to human luck, so the darkness, but ends up giving all credit to holy light and all that stuff, hence why Astora develops the way it does. Anyway, this is women, female heretics form witch tribes. Dark culture. Actually, you know what? Yeah, because we could do something like this. Dark culture degenerates into heathen worship. Like a hero. Yeah, basically. The idea is basically just to have a character who is supposed to be like this typical, like your typical idea of like a holy hero that you might read about in some like Christian epic or something like that. But it turns out that the person didn't win through the power of God. It was through the power of Satan or something, right? Like that's essentially supposed to be the twist, right? It's much like the Astraea thing, where Astraea, everyone gives credit to Astraea and be like, oh my God, it's thanks to the power of God that you were able to find this divine revelation item. It's like, no, it was because she was born with a lot of luck. She just happened to be born with luck. And that luck allowed her to find something that was credited as being holy. It just so happened. That's it. Anyway, so female heretics form the witch tribes. I don't know much about Dark Souls lore, but I'm into the history of witchcraft. How does the game explore these witch tribes? Basically, okay, so basically you have the idea that the gods are slowly trying to massage the dark culture, right? This is a very long-term, gradual process. And you don't have a central institution doing this like the Way of White. So it's a bit more casual, which makes sense because obviously they're allowing humans to kind of spread all across the world while this is happening stuff, and they end up in far corners, like doing God knows what outside of the god's knowledge and things like this. So this is something where they aren't necessarily really trying to like, you know, like expel it out forcefully, but over time it's like, hey, you know, would it be easier if you just gave your prayers to Guinevere, and then maybe she can bless your harvest for the crops or whatever, and then that works out. It's like, okay, let's all worship and do Guinevere. So everyone's worshiping Guinevere and stuff like that, right? Oh, that's actually a good one to include. Let's see. Bear becomes popular harvest goddess for man. Let's just include that as a general thing. But anyway, so point is, you have all these like medieval feudal societies. They're trying to get by with their simple work. So gods like Guinevere, say a god of medicine, like say McLoif, these gods serve a function in society that is useful. So humans begin to rely on these gods. Eventually they start becoming more and more reliant and even dependent upon these gods, and they become dependent upon them over the powers of the dark, which have been, of course, sealed by the gods themselves, right? So the gods sealed them, and they let humans spread out. As humans are spreading out and they're getting farther and farther outside the gods' reaches, the gods are already sinking their claws into them, so to speak, by essentially starting to massage them, being like, no, you want to like worship the gods and listen to this. So they start kind of falling by the wayside, and the dark kind of becomes not this universal thing among man like it is in, say, the pygmy culture at the Ring City, or even to a lesser extent it was at Ulasil, and Ulasil was the test case before all the other humans were allowed to leave, right? So, but the point is that, okay, maybe it's not, maybe, you know, we have the dark, but, you know, the dark's not really helpful for us in this era of fire and stuff like that, so we're not going to really rely on the dark, and it becomes kind of this niche thing, right? It exists, but it's not being done. But then you have, like, occasionally there'll be, like, incidents, right? Like, say, with the evil eye. So, like, you probably had some dark practitioner, did some stupid experiment, it resulted in some terrible abomination known as the evil eye, and now you have this giant monster rampaging through Astora and threatening the destruction of entire country. Now, it's this question of, okay, the dark caused almost the destruction of the country, but then it also turns out the dark also is responsible for saving the country. When we get to the one most noble, like I said earlier, it was the power of humanity, luck, that ultimately resulted in the evil eye being slain by this character who's called the one most noble. And for those that don't know, the term for nobility in Japanese can also have this connotation of sacrality to it, which is why you'll often see this idea of, oh, there are secular nobles, but they're also spiritually noble in that they're like sacred, holy. Like think of like, say, Saint Urbain, or say the I guess to an extent you could say the gods, how there's like this noble class, but at the same time they're like godhood and stuff like that. Similar thing with how those who are descended from the gods are all nobles in Irithel and stuff like that. It's a common double meaning that Miyazaki likes to draw upon and stuff like that. And it has other cultural context that go in, but that's beside the point. Anyway, point is that the idea is being like, oh, the one most noble is this person who's given, oh, you are blessed by the gods, you're sacred, this is like divine providence, like you have been, the gods were blessing you and deciding on you on this day, when reality was actually human luck. But that's not obviously what anyone who purports or supports the gods is going to say. They're going to talk about how it was all thanks to the holiness and the power of blessings and all that stuff. And as a result, now, okay, when you have incidents like this, the dark ends up taking all the blame, even though it was both the problem and the solution, right? So again, it's like anything else in life, right? It can cause you great harm, but it can also be very useful. As a result of incidents like that, humans who are supporters or advocates for the dark, or are retaining the quote-unquote old ways, are being pushed out of mainstream society. And so they're forced to live not in, say, the urban centers, but they're forced to live in, say, the mountains or the forests or whatever. And say you are like a bunch of women who are practitioners of the dark or whatever, and you're trying to keep the old ways, and one day eventually, the dark will return and everyone will be reborn in the great dark abyss and all that stuff. And this goes deep into Carla lore and stuff like that. But the point is that you're now trying to preserve your bloodline and your practices and all that. So you form these witch coven things, right? So you form like a tribe of you women get together and you form like a coven type of thing, and you're continuing your quote unquote witchcraft, your dark arts, and you're practicing and carrying them on and passing them on throughout the generations. And just doing typical witch things, probably kidnapping men so that way you can keep the bloodline alive by like raping them and keeping things doing, just doing generally kind of shady shit in forests and stuff like that, right? So like for example, we have one example of this with like Beatrice's bloodline and stuff, and we also have the idea that there's an entire bloodline of purple-haired probably witches who were also exterminated before the events of Dark Souls 1 and stuff like that. So we have examples of this. Now again, for those who aren't really witches, it becomes like this general heathen worship, kind of the memory of the dark and stuff kind of gets twisted and tangled. So you have stuff like the effigy shield, where it's not talking about an effigy per se, it's talking about a wicked or false god. So the idea is like, oh, it's not the gods that we know of, it is the old gods, as they're often called, right? It's these new pagan heathen gods that are like they're evil, but you have to understand this term for evil or wicked god has this connotation of being a false god, right? Because obviously my god's the good god, he's the true god, your god is the evil god. It's not even a god at all, it's not even real, it's an idol, so it's evil / false god, right? So all of that's kind of wrapped up into the language there. But the point being essentially that you basically have these heathens who are inventing entire gods and like religious practices and stuff, because they're no longer practicing the dark as like a logical discipline, like say to an extent the witches are. They kind of are just degenerating to like barbaric tribes. And you have references to this, like again going back to the dark root garden thing. For example, in Dark Souls 3 we have Shiva, who has met some of these dark barbarian tribe type folks that live out in the woods and has acquired some of their arrows and stuff, and they have their own practice of like scraping out death, so they scrape the dark out of the dead and stuff like that. That's kind of like the general cultural context we have here, is that this is kind of what's going on. So you have like the male dominated society, the male dominated aspect is becoming these savage barbarian tribes, and then the female dominated aspect are becoming these like witch tribes, like these little witch coven type things. And you can always argue how big or small these things are, but these are the ones that are living on the fringes of society. They're not forming you know, cities, you know, big stone cities and countries and things like that, like others, especially when you know, the dark is becoming this thing where, well, if you get too much attention, you might get exterminated, like we said with the purple-haired tribe. So just in general, this is kind of the way events are going throughout the timeline, but I think here at the end, it's a good way to round things off, because obviously it has a huge effect on how events play out once the Darksign shows back up. So from what I'm looking at here, I think this is the last major event we should be talking about. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, chat. How long has this stream been going? I've not been paying attention. All right, it has been 2.5 hours. Let's go for another hour. I think I can go for another hour. We'll go for another hour, see if we can at least get through the Darksign undead era up until Gwyn's fire linking. Oh god, this is a lot though. Super fascinating. I'm glad that helped you. Erebulism. Sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce that. All right, so chat. The Darksign emerges among man when the fire fades. Why have you written so many articles about DS2? You mean there's actually a lore worth it to explore so in depth? I don't know if worth it to explore is the right word I would use, but there is certainly lore to explore in depth. You can decide for yourself if it is worth it. But no, yeah, I've said this before. While Dark Souls 1 is probably more important overall, you need to understand both Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 to properly understand Dark Souls 3. Very important. Anyway, so Darkseid emerges among the dead of man. Producing undead. There we go. And produce undead. There we go. Dark Souls 2 is worth it. Whatever you say, I am. Re-listening to DS lore is so comfy. I am glad you guys are enjoying this. You know, this is something I want to do a little different, where I'm kind of showing you like some of the work, because this was boring, chat, and I'll be honest, I'd rather do it with all of you. If I have to go through this stupid stuff, I'd rather do it with all of you helping me out. All right, so the Darksign emerges. Sens, Fortress, and Norlondo seals city from outsiders. Sen's fortress is converted into a prison. I thought DS2 was almost totally ignored by Miyazaki in DS3. In a lot of important aspects it is, but it's still essential because there's a lot of background stuff and like just generally helping you understand the circumstances leading into 3, and then there's a few critical events into the core of it. Like, believe me though, Miyazaki did definitely like Miyazaki could have like done something where he could have like continued more directly on stuff with 2, which he obviously didn't, but again, like I said, both games are still important. It's kind of like, how do I describe this? It's I don't know how many people will get this, but it's kind of like how both Knights of the Old Republic 1 and Knights of the Old Republic 2 are both important to Star Wars The Old Republic's setting, but one is obviously the one that gets the more direct references and is more obviously like integral into a lot of the characters, events, and things that are being built upon, whereas 2 is kind of more subtle in the different elements that are being included and more sparsely referenced, right? But it's important to understand both so you can understand everything that's going on. Like, for example, the stuff with Sullivan is a lot more easy to understand if you understand the character of Gilligan and how he factors into Sullivan's story. Similar to like when you see characters like say Creighton or like say the Lion Man's shield and it appearing in the Mountain Maker stuff and how that all ties in relation to Gwyn's firstborn and stuff like that. And again, the entire founding of Lothric, it's kind of critical to understand what the events of DS2, to understand how Dark Souls 2 ended up helping informing the establishment of the Kingdom of Lothric and how its history going forward. Anyway, okay, let's focus on this. So undead are a thing. Countries, human countries fall to hollows. Let's just say fall to undead. Oh yeah, like Aldia. Like if you don't know Aldia, it's really hard for you to understand what's going on with Prince Lothric, right? Like Aldia is kind of, it's kind of critical you understand Aldia as a character. Like I said, it's one of those things where, like, again, Dark Souls 2, it is not something that is as obvious. It's not something that is referenced as frequently as, say, Dark Souls 1 is, for sure. But it's something where it's like, you know, where it is important, it makes it where you have to understand Dark Souls 2. Now, does that mean that Dark Souls 2 as a whole is worth you having to learn all of that as having it all as required reading for Dark Souls 3? Like I said, I will let you decide. It's really worth it. I see Dark Souls lore really is the best story I've ever seen. I also compare it to a legendary book writer. I agree. I think the narrative and like the world of Dark Souls is such a fascinating place, and I wish Miyazaki. I guess now with Night Rain, we can maybe hope that in the future we'll get Dark Souls spin-offs that will expand on other aspects of the lore and don't have to be about the whole linking of the fire. Like, please, Miyazaki, I don't need to have another dilemma where we're trying to figure out what to do about the fire linking. Like, no. I beg you, stop. Let's see. Human countries fall to undead. Enolondo seals city from outsiders. Sends fortress is converted into a prison. Heathens try and fail to steal power from Nito. There we go. Yeah, I think Aldi is probably one of the best characters to come out of DS2. I love him. As I always say, he is my the smartest idiot in the entire game, and I love him. Because of it. Let's see. And Orlando seals the city from outsiders, since fortress converted to a prison. I guess you could put some events between this stuff with the heathens, but I'm trying to think what those events would be. Generally don't remember when this happens, but weren't there heathens trying to attack Nito at some point, different from the whole pinwheel thing? Yes, and that's why it's around here. It's because Nito won't bring death to the gods, and the heathens, obviously by this point, the heathens see the dark on the rise, and this is the point where they're like, you know, at least in their twisted religion, they're seeing like this is their opportunity. So they go after the god of death. So yeah. So dark heathens try and fail to steal power from Nito. What do we want to put before or after this? No, Baldur is during the Firelink cycle one. Anything Ring City related? Oh, you know what? That actually reminds me, chat. Age of Fire. We still have more stuff to add here. Pygmy Lord dies and is replaced by Pygmy King Council. We forgot the transition, chat. The big transition. Leave that there. Right back here. Yeah, like I said, Boltoy, there's going to be times where because of the 30-second delay, you guys are going to write stuff that by the time it comes to me, I might have already like realized it and added it. But again, I appreciate you guys bringing it up because like, yeah, I have to make sure that I include that stuff. So what's happening in Ring City around this point? We have the let's see, Pus of Man emerges amongst pygmies of the Ring City. Let's see. Look, I think you should check out Spotown. They're saying you owned him so hard last stream that since he's been in near catatonic straight, curled up in the field position, muttering Malore. I mean, I talked to Spo just earlier today. I mean, he seems to be doing fine. So I don't know about owning him or anything like that, but we're still. I'm happy to collaborate with him more in the future. Who knows? This timeline might be assisting him in that regard. Custom Man there. Because we don't have the Way of White and stuff quite yet. Human countries are falling to the undead, for sure. Purging Monument stuff? I think Purging Monument stuff is after this. Yeah, because Purging Monument stuff, I think we've had signs that they might be connected to Velka, right? So, won't eat, won't sleep, poor fella. I mean, give Spo some credit. He's really excited about doing Dark Souls 3 stuff. And I'm excited with him, so we're both little Energizer bunnies. We're like, yes, 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 yes. The problem with Smo is that he doesn't know what he wants to cover next exactly, right? Like he has like there's so much stuff he wants to, and like I was telling again, a little bit of spilling the tea. I was telling him like he wanted to talk about like say maybe the end of Lothric and Londar. I'm like, Smo, if we're talking about Lothric's end, we have to talk about Lothric's beginning. Because it's very important you understand everything about the origins and circumstances and development of Lothric to understand why Lothric ends the way it does. So it's like that's a big, like that's a lot of research you got to do. So so whatever he ends up doing, like he has my full support. But it's like I gave him some. I'm like, listen, there's a lot of topics you can do, like a lot within Dark Souls 3, but we're gonna have to break that stuff up. Or else you are going to overload yourself with how much you're gonna have to work about. What about Patches? Is he like time traveler? No. Patches is like Miyazaki's calling card. Whenever Miyazaki is working on a game, he likes to include Patches as this character. So it started, I think, in Armored Core 4 answer, I think it was, because that's when you had Patches or Patch, quote unquote, being added as one of the characters there. And then of course you had him in Demon Souls, and then you had him in Dark Souls, and then you had him in Return when Miyazaki directed Dark Souls 3 and stuff like that. And of course he's in Elden Ring and in Bloodborne. So Patches has just become like sort of Miyazaki's like signature. He likes to include in the games whenever he can, right? Yeah, I know you're joking, Nick, but you know. I just don't know, because I don't know when you guys are just like, you know, when you guys are just memeing and when you guys are memeing, but about some cryptic news or stuff that's actually happening somewhere. Like, I don't know. Like I said, Chad, I'm so much wrapped into the minds of the Souls minds that I cannot follow like what's going on with the community all the time. Apologies, I'm too familiar with Dark Souls, but where does Quella fit into this timeline? DS2 stuff. Quella is just a tree. Quella is just a tree that's able to enter dreams or connect to people through dreams, and ends up getting worshipped as a god of dreams as a result. That's the reason you always write your theses chronologically, right? Right. Always, chat, always. Listen, all my work is chronological. We all know that Loran takes place at, like, what was the last Bloodborne thing I wrote? What's his stupid face? Oh, God, chat, the name escapes me. 1 second. What the hell? What is he called? What is he called? There's too many characters in these games. They need to share more names more often, chat. Jura! That's the name. There he is. We all know Loran comes chronologically after Jura. His lore is, you know, his lore is very important to understanding Loran and not the other way around. Always chronological, chat. Always. Oh my god. I mean, I only have patches left for here. I want to do an update to Eclipse, actually. The Eclipse, because I want to include a lot of the stuff. Because what about this specific phenomenon with the Eclipse in the Dreadkeep and the stuff with Gale? I think I'm gonna all include it there now. Because now I know Gale's his own thing. I don't think I need or want to add anything else. So I think we're gonna all include into the Eclipse up here. Whew. All right. God, I love this BGM. Oh, I love A Gentleman's Fantasy. It's so nice. Gwyn sends out Lloyd to establish the Way of White. Lloyd establishes, actually, you know what, let's make this simpler. Lloyd to shepherd the humans, let's put it. Let's use that term. Lloyd establishes the Way of White in Thorland. Your articles are put in recommended order? Yes. All what, like, if I were to hypothetically publish all my Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, or Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring content as books as they are now, those would be the orders I would have the quote-unquote chapters. That's the best way to think about it. It's not necessarily like, you know, every event in perfect chronological order, because obviously so many events and characters and crap overlap with each other. It's just not practical. But this is where I recommend you read in that order for the most sensible reading experience, where I will not be say, it's not like, oh, you're going to be reading third beginning and suddenly you have to read Sullivan first in order to understand the entire premise of Dark Souls 3's cosmological setting in the cinematic. You know, like, yeah, I love violins, man. Like, violins are great, and this is just so good. Like, Argenti's just, man, chat, they're adding Argenti to the standard banner. They're adding it to the standard banner, so who knows, I may finally get him if I decide I want to include him in the lineup, but it's like, man, he's just not like my favorite character. I'll be honest, I would like him a lot more if his armor actually clanked when he moved. The problem is that they didn't give him little Dark Souls armor clanks when he's walking around and stuff. Absolutely unforgivable for my Knight of Beauty. Anyway, enough of me gushing about gacha. Let's see. Sen's fortress is converted to a prison. The Gwyn sends out Lloyd to shepherd the humans. Lloyd establishes the Way of Light in Thorland. Lloyd's Cleric Knights hunt the undead. With holy weapons. We'll just say this. Lord's blades outfitted with Lloyd's talismans. Heathens and heretics captured and transferred to Ariamis prison. Gotcha prison awaits you. Oh yeah, I'm good. Back to the gotcha mines. Listen, I have enough Stellar Jade, chat. I'm ready for the next update. I don't need to go back to the mines. I will not be imprisoned any longer. It's your burdenous color of the lesson. Oh, good. I'm gonna be working on Dark Souls to the day I die, shit. I'll finish up with Dark Souls 3. I'll be like, it's finally Miyazaki announces Dark Souls 4. I'm like, no, you fool, why? Oh. I don't know if outfitted is the best way to put armed with Lloyd's talismans. Gwyn sends out Lloyd to shepherd the humans, and he does all that. Is there anything else we need to mention beforehand when it comes to Undead Curse? No, because Leroy doesn't become the first undead until after Gwyn links the fire, most likely. So we don't need to worry about that with the Way of White. I don't think we need to focus on Thorland as a culture either. You know, Lloyd establishes it. It follows through with his principles. That's about it. Is there anything Izalith is doing around this point? Besides, of course, obviously, besides the rebellion, but that's later. Gwyn, Izalith, and Nito collaborate to invent the undead bonfire. Right? Did you put down the individual bursts of Gwyn's shield? Yeah, I mentioned all three. They're all one bullet point. If they announce a Dark Souls 4, I think it will be a prequel of Dark Souls 1, maybe. I would hope so, but let's be honest, if we get a Dark Souls 4, I wouldn't put it past Miyazaki to decide he's going to find some way to keep this Age of Fire question going. Believe me, I want Miyazaki to finally realize that we care more about his worlds than his dumbass simple story narratives, and that I am totally happy if we just get a smaller scale Dark Souls game on the level of, say, Bloodborne, where it's like, okay, there's events happening in some smaller country, city, town, whatever, and it'll tie into a bunch of other characters and places that may intersect with it, but it's not going to be so grand scale as the fate of the entire world or some shit. We don't need that. In Dark Souls 4, you play as Yorshka, who's seeking to mend the Elden Ring so that Ornstein and Smo may be joined in Spectrum. Though sorry, I need my Cleric Beast. Cleric Beast scream, why? Gwyn, Izalith, and Nito, so they invent, yeah, that does have to happen between all of them. Let's put this afterwards, actually, right? Because obviously Nito has fully demonstrated where he sits in all stuff after stuff like that. And Orlando constructs new Londo for undead. Undead, new undead, expelled from homelands. No, let's expelled from homelands and forced and travel and will immigrate or emigrate to whichever it is to New Londo. They event the undead bonfires and stuff. Actually, we'll put this beforehand. It's like it's all coming together around the same time, but it's like, okay, like the gods are coming up with this plan with the undead bonfire and stuff and the fire and all that. So Londo constructs new Londo for undead. New undead expelled from homelands and emigrate to Londo. Are expelled. Dark Thieves try and fail to steal powers from Nito. Anything else we want to put for the new Londo stuff? Oh yeah, Gwyn appoints exceptional leaders as the Four Kings. Yep. Velka establishes sorcerer priesthood in New Londo. New Nito and Velka establish undead crypt. Undead crypt. Nito creates the Fanito. That's how you spell it, right? And no, it's I forget. It's Fenito and Milfanito, right? Because for some reason localization decided that they had to make one have the E and the other keep with the A. I don't know why. All right. So the Fenito and the Milfanito. And Milfanito. Wait, Guinevere. Da-da-da. Establishes fire keeper system. There we go. Painted World's creation. That's already been covered way earlier. That's already covered in the previous era. Need that Dark Souls dating sim. Oh god. Seek list. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything. So Velka, you know, she becomes the patron god there. She's doing the stuff with Nito. Guinevere's also involved in some of this stuff. Obviously Lloyd helps pioneer this whole firekeeping system with like the maidens, and Guinevere's involved with all the handmaidens having her same style for dress and things like that. I think they're probably. Oh no, wait, the prisoners, of course. New Londo prisoners sacrificed to Lord Vessel for first flame. Let's say for the first flame. So they get that system on the online, and they're collecting souls that way. Islith sends flame embers for New Londo dining culture. New Londo under Four Kings creates developed society. I don't think we need to mention this part, right? Because it's not really that important there. It's part of the whole development here for dining culture. For New Londo Dining Hall. I think that's everything we can add then for the New Londo stuff. We obviously have Valley of Drakes and things, but nothing relevant happens there until after New Londo falls. Blighttown doesn't exist yet. Nothing else is really happening with Islith up until then. We have Nito and Islith's contributions and help along this way. Dark Heathens try and fail to steal power from Nito. I don't think there's anything with specific countries we need to mention. I mentioned Astora because it's in part particularly notable, but I think you could fold that under humans gradually forget, degenerate, lose, lose memory of the dark and stuff like that. Oh. Church of Filianor establishes spears of the church in Ring City. Ringed City priests adopt. Let's put it like this. Wait, let's see. Will you be making, doing a live timeline, for Demon Souls and BB? Only acceptable answer is yes, Loki. I'll consider it. Like I said, I'm focusing on this one right now. Partly as a, partly as like, you know, kind of like an experimental exercise, and partly because I think this is so boring that I'd rather have, do this on live stream, so everyone else can point and laugh at me. Like I said, I'm feeling particularly masochistic today. Way of White spreads to Ring City priesthood. Let's put it like that. I think that's the best way to put it. Have you already covered Londor and the Sable Church? Yes, Londor is its own article. 1 second. Yeah, okay. Right there. Good old Londor. Right there between Lothric's first scholar, cough cough Aldia, and Lothric's end, cough cough consequences of Aldia. So we have, both are there. So you have all that, do the Church Guardian... Oh no, you know what? Gwendolyn sends, Gwyn tasks Gwendolyn with managing Ring City for Ring City for let's just say managing undeath in Ring City. Managing the dark in Ring City. Honestly, this stuff would probably come even before the new Londo stuff, if we're being real. Yeah, there we go. We'll put it between New Londo and the establishment and the invention of bonfires. Because that would make sense. Because depending on how canonical you want to consider bonfires in the Ring City and stuff like that. Either way, this is about the good time. Like, it would make sense that around the time you've already invented bonfires and firekeepers, you're going to be helping manage the pygmies and undeath in this way. So Gwyn tasked with managing Darksign to establish Gwendolyn sends Shira, Midir, and others to Ring City. Church of Filianor establishes to attend to Filianor. How far apart do you think is the span of time in between the creation and appearance of the Purging Marmot and Arstor's fuckery and Kareem? Arstor is a present-day figure during the events of Dark Souls 1. he becomes a historic figure, of course, in subsequent games. The Purging Monument stuff has to take place sometime around or earlier than the 1,000 years before the events of Dark Souls 1. So we're talking about at least 1,000 years between the time the Purging Monument is invented and our store enters the scene. Now keep in mind, our store stuff is done at the behest and backing of Velka, which is why we can likely connect the Purging Monument to Velka as well. And that's her involvement in a lot of these things. And yeah. Anyway, Ring City Priesthood. I think we'll put this before the Church of the Felinor stuff. Yeah, I think Isla should also be included because of the fire element there. No, but I think both. I think all three played some degree of role in the invention of bonfires. Personally, yeah, I think it was a matter of you combine the powers of death, light, and life that ends up producing bonfires as we know it. I believe. Because the thing is, I believe that is one of the major reasons why characters like the Quelaag and the Fair Lady know how to turn the Fair Lady into a Firekeeper and stuff like that. So I think it was a collaborative effort between all three lords. I think there was a little bit of being like, okay, we'll take this and we'll take some of the fire and stuff and we'll connect this to the first flame. Okay, but what also do we do with the undead and stuff like that and the Ring of Fire and all these things with the humanity and death? Like, I think all of it came together. Now, obviously, some aspects, you know, could argue they contributed more or whatever to the, obviously, Nito plays the huge role in adding the whole ritual thing on top of that with sacrificing humanity to the bonfire and stuff, so... let's see. Church of Felinor establishes the spears of the church in the Ring City. So we have the Wave White, we have this. And Londo is constructing new Londo for the undead and things like that, but around this time we're still having the stuff in Ring City, right? I don't think we want to necessarily put the Madman stuff with quite yet. Yeah, because that stuff has to happen after Felinor goes to sleep. So yeah, it has to happen after the fire linking already. Yeah, okay, yeah. So we can focus on then. So we have Spears of the Church. Others, Painting Guardians, right? That's who it is. Painting Guardians who attend to Felinor. The Way of White spreads to the Ring City Priesthood. So we get our Turtle Priests. Church of Felinor establishes the Spears of the Church in the Ring City, which includes some of the Ring Knights and stuff like that. And yeah, I can't think of any major events in Ring City after this point, right? Spears of the Church regulate Ring City. There, that's better. To protect her, I guess, I think would be the best way to put it. Because everything they're doing is ostensibly on the thing, you know, it's of course that's the strategic importance of placing Felinor there. It gives Gwyn carte blanche to do whatever he wants in the name of making sure that she's safe under their care. And Orlando constructs new Londo for the undead and stuff like that. Dark Heathens try and fail to steal power from Nito. Is there anything else we can add either new Londo wise or elsewhere? No, they have the dining culture. We have what they do with their dead with the undead crypt. We have what they do with their prisoners. I think here we can say let's put it up here. Rebels secretly construct purging monument. There we go. Can I just say how happy that Angel's Egg reference made me in my first playthrough of Ring City? I'm sure. I'm sure everyone's always happy when they see something that's a reference from something they like appear, you know? It's like, oh my god, Miyazaki likes the same thing I do. Have you mentioned Ring City is under leadership of Pygmy Kings? Yes, I've already mentioned the death of the Pygmy Lord and the reorganization into the Council of Pygmy Kings. So that's already been included. That was mentioned earlier on. So what we have here then... All right, so I think we've covered all the major events with the Ring City and New Londo for these early eras. Isis rebels and cuts off influence as flame imminently fades. Vamos forges Black Knight armor and weapons to challenge Chaos Demons. Oh, well, so we can't forget this, chat. Jeremiah has affair with Fina. Very important. Very important. Challenges Kinotina. Jeremiah. Fina tells Jeremiah about so Fina tells Jeremiah about impending invasion. Oh. Yeah, there we go. Gwyn and Firstborn prep invasion. Fina tells Jeremiah about impending invasion and is exiled. Is exiled for cheating. The most important bits of lore are always the Jeremiah bits, yeah. Jeremiah exiled. Jeremiah is captured and transferred to Ariamis prison. Enor Londo. There we go. How many pages is this already, chat? Oh god, we're on page 5. Oh god, we're on page 5. Enor Londo invade. Okay, yeah, so Enor Londo invades Izalith. It unironically is the hierarchy of fate of Izalith. Ah, poor Jeremiah, prophesying the destruction of his country, but the Lord, the king of the nation would not listen. And he is ultimately exiled, only for that prophecy to inevitably come to pass. And all that Jeremiah could say to his king was, "Suck it, bitch, I told ya! Should have listened!" Now, which Jeremiah am I talking to? Who am I talking about? Let's see. Enor Londo invades Izalith. We know this has to happen. Batwing demons betray Izalith. Oh, let's say defect to Enor Londo and receive lightning. Power of sunlight. There we go. Curse for being too sexy. Man, the ladies just love the demonic parasite on the head, man. Like, they just love the way it bobs. They always said he had a big head. And he would always say, which one? So stupid. You all right, let's see. Anything else we want to include here? Quaylana, please. To fringes of Islith. Yeah, no, Bray. Again. This would be our, like, prehistoric type period, right? Like, this is, you know, like, prehistoric man, evolution, all that stuff leading up to civilization with the Lord Souls and the gods, right? All right, so... Oh, there we go. All right, Quaylana flees to the fringes of Islith. Anything we want to put before there? Flees to the let's see, actually. One daughter, one Quaylana's sister dies, and she flees. There we go. Also include the asylum demons. Those are oh, let's see. Yeah, actually that's important to mention. Asylum and stray demons captured as prisoners of war, or taken captive as prisoners of war. How do you think Engi got so close to the fair lady? He lived in Blighttown. Now, you can make an argument on whether or not Engi was in Blighttown because he got sick, or if he got sick because he went to Blighttown. Like, it's a chicken or egg scenario, because he's so obsessed with his heresy and poisons and stuff, he may have just gone down there of his own volition to try to advance his poison pyromancy, ended up becoming one of the six, so he's basically forced to stay down there anyway. But either way, I mean, Quaylag and the Fair Lady were reaching out to Blighttown anyway, so... that's how. And obviously Engi's a pyromancer, so he has a special interest in the Daughters of Chaos, like literally his gods. So like, of course he's going to want to approach them and serve them in any way possible. Sanctuary Guardians as well. Yep, that's right. Let's just actually, yeah, let's simplify this. Asylum, demons, and chimeras taken captive as prisoners of war. Chimeras made... This actually makes a lot of sense now that I think about it, because Gwyn's about to head out. He's like, okay, yeah, have some of those, let's see, chimeras receive power of sunlight and become holy beasts of Ulasil Mausoleum. Yeah, this actually makes a whole lot of sense to me now, actually, now that I look at this. Because there's two ways, because there's several ways you could look at this. One, the idea would be Islith may have contributed these chimeras even before the whole war thing. Like, it was just kind of like, hey, we need someone to watch over Manus's grave, make sure like nothing dark stuff happens with him in the future. We can't trust these Ulasilians worth jack. And then ends up handing them over. He gets to collaborate with them to create the lightning, and then that's how they end up there. Or again, like we see with prisoners of war and stuff here. I think it's better to go assume with the prisoner of war stuff, because it's the thing that obviously intersects most naturally here. But even if we assume that, it makes sense then, because like Gwyn's about to leave, he's trying to do all his last minute setups. Why not be like, hey, I'm so concerned about the dark. What about the giant dark, founder of dark sorcery that's like sleep resting, in this country at the foot of mine? I should probably like be extra sure that, that place is protected, so no one like goes digging him up. Some random dark heathens or something, like what happened with Nito. So yeah, it makes sense to like put them there as like extra protection at this point. Anyway, point is, backed up here. So let's see. After Islith, even Fina. Listen, Islith wasn't putting out anymore. Think about it. Jeremiah was basically left out in the dry for God knows how many years, perhaps centuries, before she finally said, hey, honey, I want us to have a sex life again. He's like, woohoo! It's like, oh, you just want me pregnant for you want to just get pregnant for an experiment. Oh. And then they end up becoming like demonic monstrosity stuff. Listen, I cannot blame the guy for being tempted, okay? But again, never cheat, chat. Just ask Saikuno. It doesn't end well. It never ends well. That's the moral of the story. Ay, ay, ay. Let's see. Quaylana's sister dies. She flees. Is there anything else we want to add to this war? I think that's about it as far as like major events are concerned. Just clarify that we're talking about invasion of Izalith. Oh, right, of course. Anor Londo exterminates Izalith's human population. How do I want to put this? Okay, Izalith, Gwyn. No, let's put it like this. Anor Londo forms peace pact, forms peace pact with Izalith to with Izalith prohibiting demons from leaving. Let's put it like that. Let's see. So Gwyn. Let's reword this. And sent to Ulasil Mausoleum as guardians. I think it's just better. Gwyn and army return. Just join. What did I miss? The hell that is making this timeline. And Orlando forms peace pact with Izalith, prohibiting demons from leaving. Gwyn and demons. No, Gwyn returns. Gwyn and army returns with spoils of war. Gwyn divides up power amongst the clan. Firstborn inherits Gwyn's sunlight spear. Guinevere inherits Lord Vessel for undead mission. Along with mission to await undead hero. Here we go. Along with the throne to Anor Londo. Yep, that's fair. Gwyn tasks sons with guiding the humans after he is gone. Spoils of war, buries the dead. Gwyn constructs mausoleum to himself. Construct task sons with guy after he's gone. Divides up power amongst the clan. It's the medial clan. Actually, no, because it's not obvious. We're excluding Nito and stuff from this, obviously. So, firstborn inherits Gwyn's sunlight spear along with the throne to Anor Londo. Guinevere inherits Lord among to do so. Gwyn leaves with only crown, clothes on his back. The clothes on, we can count the crown as part of this, and his greatsword. Black Knights. They're not actually black at this point, chat. I'm just using this for the sake of simplicity. Split from Silver Knights and follow after Gwyn. We should probably put this earlier then. Lord Vessel set up. No, for new undead mission for fire linking. To link the fire. Gwyn divides up power amongst the clan. The firstborn inherits Gwyn's sunlight spear and the throne. And here's Lord Vessel and the mission to await the undead hero. To await undead hero. Gwyn leaves. Well, close on his back. Is there anything I'm forgetting here? Gwyn leaves only clothes. The Black Knights split from the Silver Knights and follow after Gwyn. And then Gwyn links the fire, and we have the first fire linking cycle. Oh boy. I think that's everything, chat. Is there anything I'm missing here? Like, is there any major event that should be included here that we have not included? Giant Blacksmith, I don't think we need to mention until little later. We don't really need to do it until after the fire linking, because the blacksmith's supposed to still be young and stuff when the gods do eventually leave. So, like, he's supposed to be young enough that because he doesn't have any practice partners, he ends up not being able to have a good command of language. So he can't join until around the time, like, not too long before Goff ends up retiring in about 200 300 years ago when Ulasil when he goes to Ulasil and stuff. The sealing of the kiln. The thing is that the Anor Londo and stuff could handle all that, depending on how it's like magically set up and stuff. That can all be done because Gwyn leaves the Lord Vessel and stuff for Guinevere and things like that. So yeah, it depends on how, like, the exact specifics of how the mechanics are set up for when Gwyn leaves through the portal. Assuming he even leaves through the portal. For all we know, he ends up taking the long way to the kiln. Alvina. I already mentioned the birth of Alvina. Is there anything involving Alvina? I don't think we need to mention the Fiend of the Abyss stuff until the new Londo events are covered first. Because that's when it becomes relevant for Artorias to get cursed and all that stuff, so he can help him with traversing the dark and all that. Have to go. Good continuation. No problem, Boltoy. We're about to wrap things up here. So we're about to wrap things up for today. We'll focus on the fire linking cycle stuff next time, because that's going to be its own. But considering how long the Age of Fire stuff ended up being, I get the feeling that this fire link cycle stuff, because there are a lot of events, between the 1,000-year mark, the 200 to 300-year mark, the 100-year mark, like, there's a lot of stuff we have to cover, right? Like, we haven't even covered all the stuff with like Seath and Gwyn and the DLC with Madness and all the stuff in New Londo, and obviously all the stuff with the Undead Burg and Blighttown and everything. Like, there's a lot still to cover, and that's everything leading up until the beginning of the game. All right, let's see. My boy just sent me a pic of a girl dressed as a slutty Minecraft villager. God, I hate the internet. The internet is a magical and very very unwelcoming place. Since I think that's it, chat. Like, I think we've covered all the big events involving Gwyn and the gods and all that stuff. Because, like, I'm trying to think, is there anything with Gwendolyn we've left out? And I don't think so. Oh, Philionor. Are you American? Yes, I am. I am from the United States of America. Bald eagle, rah. Philionor, Gwyn tasks Philionor with... You can argue it could be the firstborn too, but we'll just say for now, task Philionor with keeping the ring city in stasis. With sleep. Spears of the church. Are tasked with protecting Philionor's sleep. Is it worth noting Lloyd's appointment to Chief God? That doesn't happen until Firstborn is out of the picture, and he's currently the king of Anor Londo. So, yeah, not yet. Lloyd isn't Chief God quite yet. He is not the leader of the gods. He is not the wannabe king of the gods quite yet. Spears of the church are tasked with protecting Philionor's sleep. Midir leaves to hunt the abyss. And so Philionor may reawaken. I don't think we need to mention anything with the church guardians. We already mentioned the spears of the church and all that. Oh, you know, another thing we didn't mention. Where is it? Sent to attend to Philionor. Giant adjudicators. Sent to... Yeah, giant adjudicators sent to... attend to Philionor. Honestly, we could probably simplify this to just like, you know, just Anor Londo sends their best. Yee howdy. What are we doing after this? Is there anything else Ring City related? So Philionor gets the mission. You got to go to sleep. She gets the Morgana mission. She does so. Ring Knights and churches and Spears of the Church and all that jazz. You know, they're there to help her out with that. That's really about it, right? Like, I can't think of... Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on anything else we can add from the Ring City side of events. Because the Shira stuff happens after Philionor's already asleep, and we can probably place this as post-fire linking, right? Midir is left. Ah, the Batwing demons. That's right. You know what? I actually thought about that when I first was coming back up here, but then I got distracted by the other stuff. Thank you for reminding me. So... Philionor performs sleep ritual to keep the Ring City in stasis. Batwing. And Orlando sends Batwing demons as carriers for envoys. We should also put up here the whole lockdown for the envoy thing. And Orlando locks down Ring City to all but envoys. Yeah, okay, there we go. We'll keep all that. So the demons, all that with that. We have the entire sleep system put in place. Firstborns inherited the throne and everything else. Guinevere inherits the Lord Vessel and all that stuff. Gwyn ultimately leaves after he's finished giving out to his many in the clan. The Black Knights split with the Silver Knights fall after Gwyn. Black Knights are burned to ash, become wandering spirits, and this is when they become Black Knights proper. Spirits in black armor. In blackened armor. Yeah, okay, so that I think is where we're gonna leave things off then, chat. I think this is where we're going to stop. If you guys think of anything else, feel free to bring it up for the next stream we do for this. This should, I think, serves as a good reference point. Like I said, some of this stuff we could probably consolidate or condense. We don't need to get as detailed on this stuff. This is something like if I were to maybe like let's say I was doing like a Hawkshaw style timeline video, I would use some of these points to expand on stuff. Maybe we'll do that. We'll make sub bullet points and things for this time thing. But for now, this is a lot to squeeze into a timeline here. Oh, why do I keep doing it? This is quite a lot, but we now have it. So many big major events of what happens here. So I'll see what I can do later on, like I said, on kind of simplifying this stuff so we can try to fit as much as we can. Though it's going to be a big thing regardless. That's just, it's inevitable. This last point we'll do next time. Like I said, I think it's going to be very long. I think I misjudged how quickly we can sort through a lot of this stuff. I think, though, this fairly covers... Like I said, some of it's a little bit too detailed. Some stuff, again, kind of want to simplify, but I think overall, this works. It's like, what, like 6 pages? We're on page 6 now? Yeah, we're on page 6. It'll probably be like 10 pages after this last section. But, like, I think this covers a good deal of the major events. Yep. All right. All right. Later, everybody. We are going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining me on this. I really appreciate you. And bye-bye.